I never thought I'd experience something that would make me question reality itself. It began on a crisp autumn evening when I decided to take a weekend trip to a small cabin deep in the woods. The forest was dense, almost suffocating, with towering trees whose branches clawed at the sky. I had been warned that cell service would be spotty, but I didn't think it would matter. I needed the escape. The first night passed without incident. The wind howled through the trees, and the old cabin creaked and groaned, but I found it strangely comforting. I settled in with a book, a warm cup of tea, and the dim glow of the fireplace casting dancing shadows across the walls. I didn't know that those shadows would soon feel alive. It was around midnight when the first unusual sound reached my ears. At first, I thought it was a branch scraping against the cabin window. But then I realized it was footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, moving in the dirt just outside. My heart began to pound. I live alone in a busy city, and even there, strange noises set me on edge. Out here, in the middle of nowhere, they were terrifying. I cautiously approached the window, peering into the inky darkness. Nothing. Just the silhouette of the trees swaying in the wind. I tried to rationalize it. An animal, perhaps, but something about the weight of those steps told me otherwise. They were human. They were deliberate. And they were approaching. I decided to lock all the doors and draw the curtains. My mind raced through every horror movie I had ever seen, every story I had ever read. I tried to tell myself that I was being paranoid. Still, the sound persisted, now accompanied by a low, almost rhythmic tapping on the cabin door. Tap. Tap. Tap, like a metronome keeping time with my rising panic. I picked up the flashlight and aimed it toward the window. There, standing just beyond the trees, was a figure. I couldn't make out any details, only a dark silhouette, unnervingly still, watching. I froze, unable to breathe, unable to think. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it vanished. I convinced myself it had been a trick of the shadows. But the next morning I found something chilling. Scratched into the dirt near the door were footprints. Not just any footprints, large, heavy, and oddly human, yet elongated, almost grotesque. They led from the edge of the woods directly to my cabin door, and then stopped. As if whatever had come had vanished into thin air. That night I barely slept. I kept the lights on, every sound making me flinch. Around 3 a.m. I heard it again, the footsteps. Only this time they weren't outside. They were inside. Low. Heavy. Dragging across the wooden floorboards. My mind refused to comprehend it. I locked myself in the bedroom, clutching a knife I wasn't sure I'd ever use. Then I heard a voice. Soft, low, almost a whisper, coming from the living room. "Why are you hiding?" My blood ran cold. I screamed, my voice bouncing off the walls of the empty cabin, but the sound of movement continued. Chairs scraping, doors opening, the unmistakable sense of someone, or something, watching me, breathing the same air. I don't remember how I got out that night. I only know that by sunrise I was speeding down the forest road, my hands shaking, my mind racing. When I returned later with the authorities, they found no evidence. No footprints, no signs of forced entry, nothing. But I know what I heard. I know what I felt. And sometimes, late at night, I swear I can still hear footsteps outside my apartment window, echoing the terror of that cabin in the woods. I had just moved into a small apartment on the edge of town, a cheap place I could barely afford. It was old, creaking with every gust of wind, with peeling wallpaper and a musty smell that clung to the air. I was excited at first. The apartment had character, and I liked the idea of being on my own for the first time. I didn't realize how wrong I was. The first night was uneventful. I unpacked my boxes, made a quick dinner, and fell asleep exhausted. But in the early hours of the morning, I was woken by a soft tapping at my bedroom window. Groggy and annoyed, I assumed it was a branch brushing against the glass. I went back to sleep, ignoring it. Over the next few nights, the tapping became a pattern. Always at 2:17 a.m. I began to dread that exact moment. I'd lie in bed, heart racing, waiting for the sound. Then came the whispers. I would hear my name, faint, almost drowned beneath the hum of the city outside. First I thought it was a dream, a hallucination brought on by stress. But the noises became impossible to ignore. One night I woke to the room freezing. My breath fogged in the air, and I felt an icy presence standing at the foot of my bed. I opened my eyes, but nothing was there. I told myself it was a nightmare, yet I couldn't move. My body felt paralyzed. Then, a shadow detached itself from the corner of the room, moving slowly, deliberately, toward me. I managed to scream, breaking the paralysis, and flicked on the lamp. The room was empty, but I noticed something that made my stomach twist. On my bedroom wall, words had been written. "I'm still here." Not with ink, not scratched, but appearing as if formed from the shadows themselves. My mind couldn't comprehend it. How could this happen? I started researching the building's history. It turned out that decades ago, a tenant had vanished without a trace in my apartment. Rumors spoke of strange noises, cold drafts, and unexplained whispers. The apartment had been vacant for years before I moved in, yet somehow, it felt as though I was living in the aftermath of whatever had occurred. The terrifying events escalated. Objects moved on their own, books falling off shelves, dishes shattering in the kitchen, and the constant sensation of being watched. Once I saw a figure in the hallway mirror, but when I turned to look, no one was there. I tried to leave, but my car wouldn't start. Phones lost signal, neighbors avoided me, and every exit seemed impossible to reach. The final night was the worst. I was woken by a scraping sound outside my bedroom door. Slowly it crept closer. I could hear breathing, low, ragged, and impossibly close. Summoning every ounce of courage, I flung the door open. Nothing. Just the dark hallway. But the whispers were all around me now, echoing in every corner. "You can't leave. You belong to us." I ran, leaving everything behind. The apartment was never the same. When authorities investigated, they found nothing unusual. No evidence of anyone entering, no fingerprints, no trace of the phenomena I had experienced. Yet, sometimes when I close my eyes at night, I can still hear the whispers calling my name, reminding me that some horrors never truly end.